January 2017, 22, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which the falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in making the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace, friendship, and being mindful of generations to come. So now we'll begin the meeting. And are there any amendments to the agenda this evening? Seeing none, I am remiss. C.O. Morris, could you please identify staff that are present?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So we have with us this evening Director Paul McMunn, Jason Barlow, our Manager of Treatment Facilities, Fire Chief Rick Cheeseborough, our Treasurer Janet Koziel, Director Carrie Costello, and our Senior Planner Carl Grenke, and our Deputy Clerk Nadine Bennett.
Thanks to everyone for coming this evening. Any disclosure of monetary interests arising for the agenda? Seeing none, we have one delegation, and I want to welcome Terry Lee Kelford from Cornerstone Landing. Good to see you again. And the topic tonight on our agenda is update on youth homelessness. So I'll pass the floor to you, Terry Lee, and welcome. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been here, actually. I haven't made the rounds to the councils in a long time. So I'm going to try to share my screen here, actually, and talk over it. Just to warn you, I'm using a new operating system on old Mac, and it's not liking it very much, but I'll try to share this. How's that? Can everybody see that?
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. Okay. So I think most of you, no, it's not going to switch screens much. There we go. There we go. Are familiar with Cornerstone. We're a nonprofit that started here in Lanark County. Let me not switch slides for me. Oh, there we go. Started here in Lanark County about 12 years ago. We started providing financial support to young people 16 to 24, initially who were in school. We had such little funding that we just started with kids who are in school, and providing them some support to maintain their housing. As we expanded over the last few years, we started getting referrals for young people who were in much more dire situations, like sleeping outside and being homeless in general. So we've evolved into what we like to refer to as an evidence-based program, meaning that we use housing first as our primary source of support for young people, finding them housing and then wrapping them in supports that are required to maintain that housing. And we support 16 to 24 kids across the county and the town of Smith Falls, about 70 to 80 young people every year. So in early November, we had helped our 285th individual young person. So each year, the way it works, we support about 30 to 35 new referrals every year. And then we have about 30 to 40 young people who continue to work with us, sometimes as long as 6 or 7 years now. Actually, we've supported some young people so and maintain their housing. Sometimes they come and go and they take off on their own for a while, and then they'll call us back a year or two later and say, I need some help again with housing. But quite the landmark for us to hit that many individual young people. Keep in mind, the first 2 years that we helped people, we only supported about 15 kids. So it's really been the last 6, 7 years that we've supported most of these kids. So just quickly, what Cornerstone does is provide wraparound support. So we help young people find financial assistance. So Ontario Works, Ontario Disability, VISA, Voluntary Youth Services Agreement. And then we help them secure housing. Now, secure housing could mean two things. We could help them find an apartment or help them find a housing situation of some sort, or we help them stabilize their existing housing. So lots of young people manage to find adults to stay with for a period of time. So it could be the parents of a friend or a partner. And if we can stabilize that for them, we do, because obviously finding apartments and affordable apartments is not easy to do these days. So, and then we provide all the other referrals that they need and support getting to appointments as it relates to keeping them housed. So we develop a lot of relationships with landlords. If it wasn't for the housing caseworkers we have and the relationships they develop with property managers over the last few years, we would be in dire straits when it comes to finding housing. But we've had some brilliant property managers who have been very supportive of our work with young people. So, and then we provide financial support to young people. So not just rent supplements, which is a huge part of our program, but also gift cards and supplies. So we help to supplement their hygiene supplies, cleaning supplies, gift cards for food and clothes as well. So again, I mentioned that Housing First is a support evidence-based approach that we use. So, and Housing First is as much about the supports and the wraparound supports you provide as it is about the housing you provide. So we have 2 full-time caseworkers. For a Housing First program, they recommend usually about a 1-to-8 ratio. So you can imagine if we have 2 full-time housing caseworkers and 70 to 80 young people a year, we're drastically understaffed for the intensive level of supports that some people require to maintain their housing. So, but a lot of Housing First is about choice and determination. So what type of housing would you like? What can we do to get you housed immediately? No preconditions. So people do not have to be clean or sober or in school or any other conditions to access housing. The idea is that you start with housing and work out from there. This is a slide that I think people find interesting. I've been asked for it a few times now, but it shows you a little bit about the effectiveness of Housing First. So this is from 2019. I apologize. I haven't had time to roll up the last couple of years into this slide, but on the left-hand side, you'll see where kids came to us in 2019. That was their housing status when they came to us on intake. So we had 1 person sleeping rough, 1 person couch surfing or sleeping rough outside, 8 people couch surfing in general, 5 with bio mom, et cetera, et cetera. We had some in apartments, some in room rentals. Right down to emergency housing, transitional housing. By the end of 2019, those same young people, that's their housing status. So we had nobody couch surfing or sleeping rough by the end of the year. We had some movement between bio mom and bio dad. We had apartments, shared apartments go from 2 to 5, 5 to 4, and we had room rentals go from 3 to 8. That's a reflection of the costing that we were seeing at that time as well, that room rentals were pretty much the only option that a lot of young kids had. But it's a really effective slide, I think, to show you the movement from homelessness to housed and the work that we do around Housing First. Those are some older stats. We actually have a new count now that counted almost 60 people homeless in the county. This is a picture from Carleton Place. Just I throw it in here to show you what homelessness looks like for a lot of young people. There was a 19-year-old kid living in that shack for a period of time. There was actually a tent beside it as well. So this was in Carleton Place, but this also happens in Perth, Smith Falls, and Almont as well, and all the other rural areas around it. The reason I put this slide in is just about the lack of emergency housing we have for young people, so, or for older people as well, in the sense that people get a hotel room for a few days and then they're out on their own again if they can't find housing. This was big news for us last year. We actually managed to purchase a house in the town of Perth. So we now have 3 transitional units in the house, in the main house. On the right-hand side of the picture there, you'll see. And then we're also converting. We got a building permit to convert a back addition into a 1-bedroom apartment. So we're hoping that's going to be done by February. So the construction is well on its way for that. We're going to be tearing down some old sheds at the back as well, and hopefully using our tiny home in there, assuming we can get the permits going for spring. So, so we're excited to have the 3 transitional beds, which is temporary housing for young people, and then we'll have a 1-bedroom apartment and a bachelor unit on that same property as well. This is a model we were interested in and have been advocating for the last few years, and it's a model we'd like to have in each of the towns if we could. Actually, it would give us some temporary housing for kids and then apartment units in each town as well. So. We had a hard time getting this house, as you can imagine, because we put offers on several houses before this and lost them all in multiple offer situations. But and funding for charities is quite difficult. So, anyways, we did it. We're excited about it. It's been a lot of work, but we're happy we did it, and we'd love to replicate it. So. This is a bit of a program overview for us, a bit of a different way of looking at it. So we have a Housing First program that's countywide, housing caseworkers 2 full-time, rent supplements as of March 2021. I haven't updated this, my apologies. We had 18 rent supplements we were offering out to young people. The housing program we have is in Perth. It has 3 transitional beds and ideally 1 apartment, 1-bedroom apartment and 1 bachelor. So we're offering about 23 units of housing. Cornerstone budget, which is dismal. I won't focus on this one, but all that to say that we only have funding for 2 full-time staff, and then the rest of the program is run through volunteers. So the board is a working board, and we volunteer all of our time to do all of the other work that's required. So staffing, training, hiring, data, grants, fundraising, it's all done by the volunteer board. So we did a bit of a unique survey back in when COVID first happened, about 4 months into COVID. So, and it was interesting to see the impact that it had on the kids, obviously, that we were working with. So 71% impact on education, 67% impact on mental health. Lots of people couldn't access their services. They didn't have access to technology or internet to be able to access services that all got pushed online. Quite a few lost their jobs and then subsequently couldn't pay their rents, had reduced hours at work. And didn't feel safe due to COVID in their existing housing, because a lot of them, of course, in room rentals have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other people in the house with them. So it was an interesting little survey we had that showed the impact that we had on the young people we were supporting. So this is just an interesting slide I throw in. I find it really interesting in terms of the divestment in housing and how we are in a national crisis for housing right now, and the lack of investment in social housing over the years. It's pretty powerful visual, I think, in terms of the amount of social housing that's been built over the years. Just as a plug for the National Alliance, we're doing a lot of advocacy on a national level as well, with the National Alliance to End Rural and Remote Homelessness. If you're not familiar with it, there's a great website you can check out. We have some great webinars on there with people like Adam Vaughan, and there'll be some updated new ministers, obviously, that we'll be meeting with, but we're doing a lot of advocacy around federal funding for housing and homelessness. And that's my last slide. Please advocate for the building of social housing as fast as possible. Thank you. Jay, I was waiting for you to cut me off. I wasn't sure where I was at.
No, you're good. Just if you stop sharing the screen, then we can get some questions for you probably.
Yeah, great.
Okay, thank you very much. And I see Councillor Allen's hand up immediately.
Yes, thank you, Turley. It was great having you tonight. And it's so sad that there are people that are still, especially young people, that still need homes. I just thought perhaps you could share with us, you were saying we need social housing, and I don't disagree with you. What's the best way of doing that? Now, you showed us a picture of the home that you've purchased. Mm-hmm. Would you say that's the best way, or is there a way that you found that can reach the most and do the most good? Is there such a thing?
Yeah, I'm a huge champion of housing first. And if you talk to folks like Dr. Tim Aubrey, who are one of the lead researchers on the largest housing first study in the world, he's a university professor at OU, he would advocate for private market scattered site housing, which means using rent supplements, which we did. And we did it very successfully for a long time. The problem is when you start to rely on the private market and you stop building social housing, which we did 20 to 25 years ago, we end up partially in the situation we're in now, in that private market becomes so expensive, you have to have the funds to keep topping up rents. And so when we used to give $50 a month to help a young person secure their apartment, that was only 4 or 5 years ago. We're now at about $400 a month to help a young person secure their. We can't do that as a nonprofit. It means that we help less people. So it's kind of this, it's a balance between, because I believe in choice as well. So lots of people want to be able to choose what community they live in. They don't necessarily want to be in a high-rise social housing development. And you want some of that choice in there. At the same time, the private market is extremely volatile and it's not going to change anytime soon. So we were in a position to buy a house because we didn't have a choice. We could not continue to fundraise the amount of money it was required to provide rent supplements to people. And so it was kind of like how do we start investing our money wisely, kind of like a business model. Why would we continue to line the pockets of private landlords if we can buy our own housing and offer it at a much lower rate? So it's actually more cost effective at this point to have the house. Is it going to present challenges? Yes, we have young people that don't want to go to Perth from Carleton Place or Almont or anywhere else. And so having one of these programs in every town would be great. But it definitely feels like an upward climb right now to try to meet the need, either through private market or housing. I think it requires a balance of the two. What we lost is the balance. We stopped investing in social housing. Lanark County did not build housing until just recently. We actually lost units. And so when you have an increasing need and you aren't constantly filling that, it's a problem. I've cited a Auditor General for Ontario report that's really, really, really good report from 2017, chapter 3.14 is on social housing. There's brilliant research and stats in there that speaks to this issue of over-reliance on private market. If we over-rely on it, we end up losing out in the end, which is kind of where we're at now, because even the incentives that we talk about giving to builders, like whether it's investment in affordable housing dollars or you folks finding ways to provide incentives to builders, there's usually a time frame attached to that. And that's what happened 20, 25 years ago. There was 20-year contracts, 25-year contracts signed. So there's a great report by Steve Pomeroy, who speaks to the idea that we're losing 15 affordable housing units for every one we're building right now, because all those contracts are ending and those folks are not renewing their contracts. So they take the money when they get it, they live out the term, and then as soon as they can, they convert those units back to private market. So for all of those reasons, it's a long-winded answer for you, sorry.
Oh,
We want to have a balance. We want to have some of our own housing, which is affordable, that we can maintain the rents at an affordable level. And then we also want to continue to maintain the rent supplement program as best we can, because we know that that's also part of that housing first model and choice for people and where they live.
Can I ask one more question, Mr. Chair?
Sure. Yes.
What's the number one way you find people? I mean, how do you, is there a specific way that all of a sudden you made aware that there are young people that are in need, or is there certain, I'm just curious.
Well, and again, I come from a service provider perspective. So obviously the service providers are the ones who see these folks, right? Like we know they're out there, we always have. And if you recall, like I started a coalition in Lanark County 23 years ago now. We started the coalition because there was a problem with youth homelessness and there were no services. So it's been 23 years that I personally have been advocating, and others in the county have been doing it for longer than me. So it's always been an issue. It's one of my biggest concerns right now, is that there's a lot of focus on affordable housing, but we're not talking about homelessness enough. And housing first, like I said, is equally about the supports, the wraparound supports you provide people to maintain their housing, as it is about the housing. You can put someone in housing and 3 months later they lose it. You can put them in housing and 8 months later they lose it, because there's a lot of support pieces required around that. And so as much as I love the fact as an advocate that we're talking about affordable housing all over the county right now, right across Canada right now, I worry that we're missing out on that support piece, that wraparound support piece as well, because that also has to be funded and in place for people to maintain their housing. Otherwise, you have this constant cycle of people in and out of housing. The biggest source of referrals for us is schools.
Huh. I wondered about that.
Yeah, and so actually it was interesting the first, well, sad, but interesting, the first like 8 months of COVID, when all the schools closed, our referrals for 16, 17, 18-year-olds dropped dramatically, like dropped 60% because the schools were in place. Because our housing caseworkers are in the schools like every day they can be. And the schools are saying, I think you should talk to this person. I think you should talk to this kid. Yeah. So service providers and the schools are our biggest source of referral.
Yeah.
Hey. Thanks for that. Mayor Panko, you've got your hand up virtually.
Yeah, thanks, Terry Lee, and we always appreciate you coming to council and giving us some updates and sharing your wisdom. So a couple things. One, you mentioned you are looking towards expanding and hopefully offering purchasing more homes in more areas and putting those supports in place. So I think that's probably critically important. As you're aware, we have a housing advisory committee which is working on a multifaceted approach, and I guess I'll recognize that until we get people housed in homes they can afford, we haven't made a difference yet. And we're looking at partnering, of course, with not-for-profits and planning mechanisms. One thing a recommendation came out of the housing advisory committee that will come back to council in the future is the possibility of a portable housing benefit. And if we can play a greater role with that, so I'd like to maybe some feedback from you on the merits of that. And as well, if you can just speak a little bit more about what you experience now. So you mentioned 6 or 7, 8 years now that you've been providing rent supports. Do you follow do you track the outcomes of the support with any of the youth? In other words, a few numbers of years later, what are the outcomes that you're able to measure and success you're able to see?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I love the fact that there's all these housing task force set up, that there's consultants being hired to recommend tools and best practices and that sort of stuff. But again, I do think it requires a balance between social housing approaches and housing first approaches. And I don't want the conversation of supports lost out in this conversation, because we can throw, again, rent supplement money, portable housing benefit money at this issue all we want. We're still going to have homelessness if we don't provide the supports that are required. And we have seen that intensively in the last year or two, because a lot of services are still online and you can't go into an office to meet with people, and there's not as much outreach with people. And with the prices of housing, the Cornerstone Landing staff are just running nonstop, trying to problem solve evictions and risk of evictions and landlord complaints. Like in the last year or two, it just feels like we're in crisis mode constantly. Whereas 2-3 years ago, even as early as 2-3 years ago, we were celebrating more high school graduations, college kids going off to college and university. And so it really speaks to that whole instability in housing as well. So it's not just about getting people housed, it's making them stable so that they don't have to worry about, I had a young person who said, I'd almost rather be homeless than to be worried about being evicted every single month. I can't live like this. Like I can't live with the fear of having to have a backpack packed all the time because I'm gonna be out on the street again. And that was a young person who'd been homeless for a very long time. But it speaks to that stress and overall weight of like being worried about not being able to pay your rent all the time. And unfortunately, we're in a position now where people are renting units they know they can't afford, but they got to do it because what else are they going to do? Stay on the streets? And so they rent them and they know within 3 to 6 months, they're going to be at risk of losing their apartment again because they can't keep up with the rents. So we're in this crisis-oriented cycle right now. And so the level of supports, like even for our staff, is like crisis-oriented. So and it's one of the reasons why we also know as landlords, we're going to do everything we can not to evict people. We're going to keep them housed. And so as nonprofits, that's why your best investment is to partner with nonprofits, because their mandate is to do affordable housing. So therefore, they're going to try to keep their rents as affordable as possible and provide the supports as best they can. So I know I missed a question out of there.
Just a portable housing benefit. Maybe your thoughts.
Yeah, I think the portable housing benefit is great. And I've listened into a few of your meetings. So I'm really excited to see, like, you guys are going to be leaders in that regard. If you can actually, agree to financially support the idea of either portable housing benefits or some sort of financial support for social housing. The risk you run, I think, and again, I don't want to speak out of turn in regards to the county, but the county has no staff compared to the amount of units they have to manage. And so a portable housing benefit, for example, going to the county is great. They have the systems in place to be able to administer it. They have the list of people that need housing. The concern I would have as an advocate is they don't have the level of staff required to support it. So would the people accessing those portable housing benefits actually see any staff support as a result of that? And are we then contributing to that whole cycle of people in and out of housing, I don't know. It's just it's a huge concern I have is we don't have a housing first program for adults. And so I know there's been agencies talk about wanting to do that piece, but we don't have any of those wraparound supports. And I'm telling you right now, it's the only thing that's saving a lot of our kids from being back out on the streets right now is the level of support we provide along with the rent supplement. So great, fantastic, excited to hear people talking about these things and excited that people are willing to put some dollars behind it. But I think it is a balance. It's no different. It's a balance between rent supplements and supports and private and social. So.
Thanks, Terry Lee.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions from my colleagues? No, Terry Lee, I want to thank you for coming. Your passion is apparent, and I know that you've been at this for a while, so I want to thank you for giving us an update, and thank you for the work you do. So yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to me, and thanks to those who have to put up my grumpy messages sometimes trying to advocate for housing. So. But keep doing what you're doing.
Squeaky wheel gets the oil sometimes.
Keep doing what you're doing. I'm happy to hear people talking about housing and affordable housing as much as they are right now. It's great.
Thanks for doing it.
Okay. Take care.
You too. Okay. We'll continue on. We have no adoption of minutes. I understand that we have one director's report, very timely, with the Director of Public Works, Director McMunn, and it's been a tough day, so go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I just wanted to advise Council that with the recent storm that's still upon us, I don't think we're out of the woods yet, that we did issue a significant weather event on behalf of the town shortly after lunch today. So what that means is that under these types of special circumstances where we do get notifications from Environment Canada of significant storm events, such as what we've experienced over the last 24 hours, we do have the ability to issue this type of weather event statement. And what that affords the town is, with provincial minimum maintenance standards, it affords us to be able to suspend those winter maintenance provisions and afford us a little bit of time, extra time, if you will, to maintain the streets and get them back to a state of repair that is expected through winter control operations. So I have been in conversations with Public Works operations staff today. I've been working remotely from home in Brockville today, and I've talked to operations staff a couple of different times today, and they're making do with the resources that we have and the equipment that we have. I've been talking with some staff that have been in town hall today, and they're quite impressed with the condition of the roads based on what we've seen happen over the last day or so with the storm. I guess of note as well for council and anybody that's on this council meeting this evening with respect to residents within the community, it's important to note that we didn't do this in isolation. There's many of our neighboring municipalities in southeastern Ontario that have done the same, and a lot have done so in advance of us doing what we did in Smith Falls. So I'm hoping we're out of the woods. I've been watching the radar and watching the weather. It looks like the most is behind us. But what we do have is another less significant storm coming on the heels of today on Wednesday. So important to note as well that we will have some significant snowbanks around town that we haven't been accustomed to, at least this winter. So it'll take some time for snow removal activities to take place. We do have staff that will be in Tuesday late evening in through Wednesday morning that will be servicing the DBA for snow removal operations to get that kind of buttoned up down there as well. So I did send an email to council this afternoon shortly after lunch advising of the significant weather event. And we have posted to social media, Facebook, the town's website via a public notice. And we also advise the local radio station as well, Lake 88. So I think we hit all the proper channels. It's noted if anybody has any questions, they can vet their questions through my office. We did update our internal phone system at Town Hall as well for any after hours calls that come in. It is on there as well. And hopefully we won't have to deal with storm events like this winter, but who knows? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Director. Any questions from my colleagues that you, Councillor Alford?
No questions, just I hear you, and that you're asking for people's patience while you have an opportunity to recover from what they're referring to, Paul, I thought was rather amusing, is snowmacron. This storm, that's what they're referring to it as, sort of appropriate during the pandemic. But no, please, I'm sure my colleagues agree that we know what challenges face our staff in the next couple of days, and we appreciate all the work they're going to put into it, and for, again, people's patience in allowing time for our staff to be able to do this. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? No, thanks, Director. I said it before and I'll say it again. We have the best plowed streets in Lanark County, if not Eastern Ontario. And, just patience is warranted. I've seen the reports from Ottawa and other places. Some places have suspended service totally for a period of time. And just thanks to your staff and you, and we'll get over this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that would be the end of the staff reports as I understand it. We have no correspondence items, no in camera. So we'll get to the good news here. And we have Treasurer Koziel up with our 2022 third draft budget report. Welcome, Janet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm here this evening to present the third draft of the 22 budget and to seek council's direction for final budget approval. So on December 13th, we had the second draft presented to Committee of the Whole, and at that time, staff were asked to bring forward rate increases of 2, 2.5, and 3. Council's direction at that time was to come forward with a 2% rate increase for taxation and utility billing, the third draft. The total additional revenue equates to about $449,000. So that scenario was denoted as option 1 in my report. So staff are also presenting 2 other options this evening for council's consideration. Option 2 consists of no rate increases, and option 3 consists of a rate increase to the water and wastewater only. The tax rate will remain status quo, and this consists of additional revenue of about $105,000. These have been prepared in response to a larger than expected surplus for 2021, which was presented in my November budget monitoring, which was shortly after the second draft was presented, which is estimated to be about 1.5 million. As well, the 2022 actual tax roll increase was a net taxation revenue of about $1.1 million, inclusive of approximately 1.9 in residential growth and retroactive supplemental billings over multiple years, 2019, 2020, and 2021. So further to this, the estimated ending balance for 2022 for the tax supported capital is estimated to be about 1.6 million. The long-term plan only projects that to be about 267,000. And that's as per our long-term financial sustainability plan. So as noted in my report, option 3 has been recommended by staff. This option will lessen the required tax supported stabilization in 2022 to 537,000 from 662,000 in 2021. And that will bring us closer to the ultimate goal, which is full cost recovery for our utilities. So with that, I will pause and answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Questions from my colleagues. Councillor McKenna is first, and Councillor McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Treasurer Cozile, for your report. I had a question about your report on the top of page 2, where you're referring to the online property tax analysis portal. And I'm just, I'm seeking a better understanding of what that is. And is it is it looking at all of the property in Smiths Falls? Could you just explain what what information is contained in that portal, please?
Mm-hmm. So that wasn't activated until after the last second draft budget. So when I prepare the potential increase of taxation, it's based on estimates only. So when we enter those into the Opta, it takes into account, you have to do a fair kind of, there's a fairness margin between all classifications. So, and with that, we have what's called banding for some of our industrial. So it's quite complex. So it did put a bit more of an emphasis on the increase to residential. So I just wanted council to be aware of that. And that's why I had indicated it was 56 when we did the estimate, how it would impact the average residential. It's actually going to be closer to 79. So I just wanted council to be aware of that.
If I may, Mr. Chair,
yes.
I'm still not clear who populates the online property tax portal. Like, what information is in that you're gleaning?
MPAC sends that through to Opta, and they take all of the assessments for the various classifications and shifts it as to what the new rate increase will be as per each classification, starting with the residential, and then it's based on ratios for all the other classifications.
So in spite of MPAC not doing the full assessments at this time, they are providing this?
Well, there was supplemental billings for industrial, residential, and commercial, so that would all have an impact on this as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Let's get through this. So, oh yeah, Councillor McGuire, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Janet. This is great. It's I'm wondering, with the changes now in our revenue, when we come to the tax time next year, when we look at our long-term plans, how does this affect those numbers that we were supposed to increase by each year, or is that completely out of the picture now?
Well, the long-term plan had estimated growth, which we exceeded by almost twice as much. We only had 1% in our long-term plan. This year it was almost double that. And again, the ultimate goal is to keep our capital reserves in projected balances in each given year. And with the surpluses, which was not part of that long-term financial plan, we've been able to exceed that. And also with grants, that's not a part of the projections within the plan. So we've been able to exceed all of our capital reserves for those reasons.
Great.
Without the tax, yeah.
it sounds like we can responsibly cut taxes by the rate of inflation this year and keep going. My one concern is with the deficit with the water and wastewater operations. As long as there's a deficit in that account, I'd like to see us at least increase that by the rate of inflation. I think clean water is the most important thing the municipality provides. It's a very high quality product that we're providing, and it's still being subsidized by the tax revenue. So my preference would be to peg that at the rate of inflation so we don't see it de facto cut, and really excited to see the break that we're going to be able to give the taxpayers on their property tax bill.
Okay, thank you for that. Mayor Penko, you had your hand up virtually.
Yep, thank you. 12th budget, I guess it's the same for Councillor Brandon and Adeline and I. Without a doubt, probably the most exciting budget we've experienced. I think great work by staff and managing our finances, as well as some really successful grant applications, good growth in the community, and all of this leads to an opportunity for us to do significant capital work, 17 million in capital work this year. Maintain balances and reserves which are greater than our long-term financial plan had targeted, and come in with no increase in the tax rate. I think it's a remarkable work, and Janet, you've done a great job to put this together and prepare it, as well as all the department heads. Everyone's been involved in putting this together. So I think we're in a very enviable position, and I think certainly I support moving ahead with no tax increase. When it comes to water and wastewater, I'm a little bit mixed feelings there. I think it's great that we could reduce the supplement from taxes to water wastewater rates by about $200,000 roughly, and narrow that gap. And that's something that we've been working on for as long as I've been on council. And it was something we could chase and we could never seem to catch. So we have a modest increase there. It works out to about $25, I believe, for the average homeowner. So it's modest. I in some ways, I say I'd love to see no increase there either, but I'm fine either way. I'll see where the majority of council sits on that. But regardless, I certainly don't want to see a rate increase in the taxes. And I think it's been incredible work to get at this point. It's going to be an exciting year with a lot of capital work getting done. And when this council finishes its term, I think we're leaving the town in great financial shape, even though we've been doing a lot of work as well along the way. So thanks everyone involved.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Alfred.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I took a look at some of our neighbors, and they're bringing in in Perth's case 2.5, Carleton Place 1.97, the county's 2.3, Brockville's 2.2, Gans 1.6. That was just a quick glance through the news about what they were doing. And I was a little trepidatious when I saw Treasurer Quazil's report about zero. But given that we've signed, and this is how I rationalize it, given that we've signed 4-year contracts with staff for 2%, so I was thinking that, but our growth, our 1.9 for me, sort of evens that out. So if Treasurer Kozil is recommending zero in 2022, it's because we can handle zero this year. So I will support option 3. I do think the increases of 2 and 2 on water and wastewater also means, because it means that tax supported is not subsidizing the water, and it decreases, I think if I read that right, by about 125,000. So I'm completely comfortable with what Treasurer Kozil is recommending for option 3. I would make one other comment though with regard to the report, because to go back to the Heritage Conservation District study at $120,000. I don't think I support that. I don't believe I supported it at the last meeting either. I just think that we have other priorities. I think that is something that is in the future for us, but at this point in time in 2022, I don't think right now there are other higher priority issues in town that I would rather see that money diverted to. But those are my comments for now. Thank you, Chair Brennan.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Allen?
Yeah, I'm happy to go with the recommendation as well. And I would prefer to keep the heritage conservation area in our total, because this is my 12th year. We've been looking at that for 12 years. We've been recommending it. We've been needing it in our downtown and the buildings that we still haven't been able to put on properties of interest or to identify. And this is going to make our community much better. And I think it's a good investment in the future of our town. So I definitely support keeping it in.
Okay, thank you. So you'd be supportive of option 3,
Yes.
Councillor Allen? Okay, thanks. Councillor Dwyer?
Thank you. I'll just note my support for the staff recommendation of option 3. I think it's fantastic, and I mean, congratulations, Janet, on pulling a fantastic budget together in 2022. It's exciting, and it's because of your hard work. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor McKenna's given me a thumbs up for option 3. Yes, okay. And I am as well. And Mayor Panko and Councillor Allen will know that in the 12 years that we've been around, I haven't voted for the budget every time. And there's been a couple of years there that I haven't, but I want to congratulate staff, because late in December, we talked about the budget, and it seemed to me that we needed to keep the doors open, and I don't know how they were going to do it without a little extra money, and that's why at that time I supported it at 2%. But things have changed, and happily, and I want to congratulate staff, especially for finding the support that we need from the upper tier. And in terms of the water and the wastewater, there's only one taxpayer, and I've been hearing for probably the whole time that we have to be self-sustaining on that stuff, probably since Walkerton, and that's a challenge. And I think that we've been moving towards that. You can't do it all at once, or you can't do it as we had some consultants come in and tell us we need a 10% for 5 years or something. No, you've got to do what you can do, and I think we've shown that. So I'm happily supporting option 3 tonight, and hopefully I think that means that we can go through with first and second reading tonight, and then 2 weeks later we'll pass this budget. Treasurer.
So just wanted to clarify, this evening will be first and second reading. So in 2 weeks, typically, historically we've done it, which would bring it to January 31st, which is the 5th Monday of the month.
Yes.
Just wanted to know if council would be receptive to doing third reading next week. I know you have typically waited 2 weeks, but.
I'm fine with that. I think that, usually we have 2 weeks for the public to ruminate and stuff. I mean, I don't know who's going to complain about no tax increases. So I think we can do it next week, and I think everybody's got a thumbs up on that, right?
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
So that's good. That's exciting. The next item is the interim tax bylaw report, and again, Treasurer Koziel, as we do every year.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm here this evening seeking council's authorization for a bylaw to impose an interim tax levy. So the interim levy, which is based on 50% of the 2021 tax levy, is required to provide the necessary cash flow to meet the obligations of the town until the annual tax rates are set and the final notices are prepared, which is typically the end of May, beginning of June. So the bylaw is required prior to the end of the month so that staff can initiate the billing, which is typically the first week of February. So to be consistent with previous or prior years, the installment dates are for the interim levy are typically February 28th and April 29th.
Okay, any questions? Everybody sums up. We've got to pay the bills, so that's what that's about. So that'll come forward very shortly in the next council meeting, as will the budget. 8.3, 2022 municipal grant contributions report, and that's with Director Koziel. Welcome, Director.
Director Costello.
Sorry.
Janet did the first two, and I'll do the third
Yeah,
one.
sorry.
So bringing forward a report this evening for our annual municipal grant contributions. As council is aware, I think maybe this is the 4th or maybe 5th year that we've had a staff evaluation committee who review the applications that come in and ensure that they meet the criteria that is outlined in the municipal grant policy. We have met and done so again. The deadline was November 30th. We received applications, 9 applications at the time. We do have 2 more that came in late that the evaluation committee will be reviewing, and another report will be brought forward for council's consideration at a future committee of the whole. But this evening, looking for council's concurrence to bring forward approval for Rideau Paddle Fest, requested amount of $1,570. The Smith Falls Horticultural Society, $600. Big Brothers Big Sisters, who council heard a delegation last week, their ask of $25,000, as well as the Table Community Food Center with their ask of $40,000. The other 2 that we'll be bringing forward at a future committee of the whole, there was the Lanark County Justice Program. Their ask was $8,500. We went back and asked for some further information from them, as well as the Railway Museum. We've asked for some clarification. So that will be coming forward at a future committee of the whole for council's review at that point. But this evening, the staff evaluation committee have approved the Paddle Fest, Horticultural Society, Real, Big Brothers Big Sisters, and the Table. That's part of the schedule attached to your report. If council concurs, we'll be bringing forward memorandums of understanding, those that did delegations after 3rd reading of the budget, and the rest of the money can be distributed again after 3rd reading of the budget.
Okay, thanks, Director Costello. Councillor Alfred.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions, Carrie. I seem to recall that we've seen rural FASD support network on the request before, and I see Peggy's House for Men was a late submission, but both of the notes on there does not meet eligibility requirements. Do we do outreach with those people in terms of telling their sort of guiding them through what they would have to do in order to be eligible?
That's a great question. I know our deputy clerk does correspond with them. The rationale, one of the big pieces of rationale is that the entity that the majority of the population be eligible or have a benefit from the application. So for those 2, that's not the case. It's a very small percentage that are either Smith Falls residents that would be eligible or that would partake in the program. So that's a great question. I can't say for certain what feedback that Deputy Clerk Bennett does provide to them, but we certainly can provide more in-depth feedback when we're corresponding with them this year.
Well, I just would like, for someone who, now I don't recall seeing Peggy's House for Men before, but the rural FASD network, I believe, has been on several times. And so I'm just wondering if they understand why they don't meet their eligibility requirements, if it's something, as you stated, why they keep applying over and over only to be refused. So that would be my one comment. The other comment with regard to Big Brothers Big Sisters of Lanark County and the 22 request being $25,000, and that is likely to pass. That's the recommendation. I don't ever want to lose track, and I mentioned this last year, that the donation to Big Brothers Big Sisters is 25,000, but it is also plus the 15,000 that they get through the town's contribution towards WAC through the county. So the town contributes $15,000 towards the youth centers, and 15 of that goes to our youth center here. So 25 plus 15, and we don't measure in kind or give any value to in kind because WAC is also been headquartered in our youth center for some time. So for me, I'd like to see some of that incorporated when we see what kind of money we're allocating to some of these things. And again, Big Brothers Big Sisters is a wonderful organization, but it is, I think, our responsibility to make sure that our population knows how much we are donating. And other than that, I will be supporting staff's recommendation.
Thank you for that. Mayor Panko's got his hand up virtually. I just saw you, Peter, and I might have missed someone else, but go ahead, Mayor Panko.
Sure. No, I just want to provide my support to staff recommendation, and I think it's Councillor Brennan, actually you were Chair Brennan tonight, who suggested years ago that we put together a matrix, or staff put together a matrix to do the scoring and determine most suitable, because this was always a very sort of political debate at budget time. So the rationale is sound. The requests are from very meaningful organizations, and I'll support the recommendation.
Thank you. Now, Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too support the staff recommendation. I just note that it was interesting to me, the Rideau Environmental Action League, or REAL, actually asked for less money this year. So it's they're doing a great job, and it's kind of nice that they said we don't need as much as we had last year. And it was a nice note, and I thank them and all of the applicants for that, for the work they do.
Yeah. Councillor McGuire, do you have your hand up? Or
yes, go ahead, Mr. Chair. No, it's great. It's especially since it's under budget, so it's an easy decision. I'm wondering with the FASD support network, I'd be interested in getting more information or taking a look at that with some of the other applications at the future COW meeting, because I think like when we look at the table, a very small percentage of the population is going to sit down and eat there. But I think as a community, we agree that the community is better off because of it. I'd like to make sure that that application isn't similar, because it's such a small ask, and the money's in the budget. I'm a little bit nervous with the postponing the RMEO approval, because it didn't go well last year, and I just don't want this to be dragging again. So I'm wondering what information are we waiting to receive, and do we have a timeline from RMEO of if they're able to provide it and when?
Director Costello.
It shouldn't take too long, Councillor McGuire. We did follow up with Tony over a week ago, and I did follow up today with Councillor Allen with what was lingering. So it shouldn't be too long at all. We're hopeful that we can maybe bring another report forward on the 24th.
Good, that's great. Thank you, Director Costello.
No problem.
Okay, any other comments? So we're good with that report. I just want to add my support for that. And actually with a couple of the ones that were mentioned, this is why we made it a change, because years ago it was more like picking numbers out of the air and who's your favorite and that type of thing. So we made a matrix and did a policy, and I'm glad we're following it. And every one of these ones that have been approved are worthy, and so I'm happy to support it. And the other part of that is there's still money left over. There was a few that were late, and they'll be considered as well as through staff and the committee, and then they'll bring a recommendation to council. So we look forward to that as well. So that will come forward, I guess, after the third reading. CEO Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to point out that You are correct. This recommendation does bring us below the budgeted amount, but I'd just like to acknowledge that we didn't get any requests for events. All the requests were for programs. So one would hope once the pandemic resides that we'll see more events. So this does provide capacity for event organizers to come forward. It's an open intake, so we're hopeful we'll see more requests for event funding as the year unfolds.
Look forward to that, and a streamlined event policy as well, I might add.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so that'll come. This money will flow after we pass the budget, the ones we've approved, and we look forward to supporting those organizations. Finally, 8.4, which is 143 Lombard Street zoning amendment report, and that's with Senior Planner Grenke. Thank you for being patient, Carl. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. Staff are presenting a recommendation from the Planning Advisory Committee to approve the rezoning of a 3.25 hectare, 8-acre area of land, part of which is owned by the Otis Developments and a part of which is owned by the town that they're seeking to acquire. The front parcel facing Lombard Street is currently zoned highway commercial, and the rear, which is landlocked, is zoned business park. The applicant proposes to merge the parcels and construct a shopping center across the amassed lands, which will include a number of commercial units of various sizes in 3 buildings. The highway commercial zoning at the front of the property allows a variety of commercial uses. However, the industrial category zoning at the rear does not allow retail or a shopping center, and as such, the applicant has applied to rezone the entire parcel to allow the development as contemplated. Otis Developments also owns the adjacent plaza that includes the Starbucks, LCBO, and several other outlets, and they advise that this development would be similar in form and function to that. The application proposes to rezone the parcel to a shopping center commercial zone with a special exception mandating a minimum unit size of 185 square meters, or about 2,000 square feet. And that was identified as a differentiator between the types of businesses typically locating in the downtown core compared to elsewhere in town, including the corridor commercial area. And this zoning is similar to the neighboring plaza. The application was circulated in accordance with Planning Act requirements, and the Planning Advisory Committee hosted a public meeting in December. There are no members of the public present at the meeting, and no objections were received by the town. Several municipal departments, as well as the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority, provided feedback, and no objections were noted, with RVCA Community Services and Public Works noting that areas of their interest would be addressed through a site plan application. The PAC outlined support for the application and reiterated the importance of ensuring connectivity with the Cataraqui Trail that abuts the property and ensuring that that be maintained for future development. And that would be more specifically addressed through the site plan application. The committee passed a unanimous resolution in support of the zoning application. The staff planning report evaluated the application within the context of the official plan's corridor commercial policies and infrastructure sections, and also looked at active transportation and came to the determination that the application is broadly consistent with the applicable policies, the official plan and PPS, and accordingly recommend approval of the application. And if council concurs, then a bylaw can be adopted by council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carl, and that will happen tonight if we concur. Any comments, questions, support? Councilor McGuire.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Senior Planner Grenke. I'm wondering, it's great to see that there's development on this properties moving forward. It's disappointing that it's not a bigger footprint store. I know at the existing facilities next door, it's taken a lot of businesses out of things that were already built in the downtown core and in previous malls. So I'm hoping that this one attracts new tenants and not just people moving. I'm wondering, from the site sketch that's been provided at this stage, going into site plan control, is there anything that we can do on Lombard Street and on anything that's adjacent to the Cataraqui Trail that would improve the aesthetics and improve the property in that sense?
Go ahead, Carl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor McGuire. Yeah, so the site sketch that's presented here is very preliminary, and the official plan does have a number of policies prescribing streetscape enhancement and certainly supporting the provision of active transportation throughout the site and connecting, of course, with the town's broader network, including the Cataraqui Trail. So certainly these are important features that would be looked at very carefully through the site plan process. And a site plan, and if the zoning proceeds, the site plan we would be looking for landscaping plans and more detailed designs of what this would look like for councils and PAC's consideration.
Yeah. Okay. I think what we're talking about is a zoning amendment to allow commercial to go in there, and then what it's going to look like will come later. Councillor Alford.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to support the zoning change, and a lot of you're correct, Chair Brennan, that PAC will be looking very closely at the site plan stage to make sure that all of the concerns that we all have, including the ones voiced by Councillor McGuire, are dealt with. I do want to say, though, I am as the appointee to the Downtown Business Association, I'm glad to see that we have retail market analysis to support the fact of what size these things have to be in order not to compete or to compete less with anything in the downtown core. So that's something I have not seen before when we've talked about zoning out there. So this is good news in terms of the Downtown Business Association. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll look for support from my colleagues for this. Good. And that'll come forward tonight. And it means more retail, people coming into town to shop at that retail, people working at that retail. So that's good news. That's it. So I'll entertain a motion that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 6:02 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. Mover, Councillor McGuire, or Councillor McKenna, Councillor Dwyer, all in favor? Okay, we're so adjourned. And we have a council meeting coming up. And so Deputy Clerk will need a few minutes, do you think, or 5, 4, 5?
Yeah, 5.
5, okay. See you in 5, and thanks for your indulgence.
Nadine, is the revised agenda complete, or is there anything to add?
Yeah, no, it's all good. So we just need to have mover and seconder. So Councillor McKenna, would you support doing first and second reading of the budget? That's item 7.3. Okay, so 7.3 will be with Councillor McKenna. Okay. 7.4 is the tax levy. Councillor Allen, would you be able to do that one? That's the one from tonight, okay. And
7.5.
7.5, if we could give that to Councillor McGuire. Just making sure we have everybody down. If he's supportive, we'll check with him. And then 7.6 is the Lombard Street, and we could give that to Councillor Alford, if that's okay. Councillor McGuire, are you okay doing the bylaw 7.5? That's the water and wastewater rates bylaw.
I need a seconder. Somebody could second my two motions, my two. Thank you, Peter.
We got Peter for both. That's for minutes.
Yeah, the minutes and then the tax levy, I believe, are the two I have.
Sorry, Councillor McGuire, did you say you're amenable to the water rates? Oh, sorry, you're muted.
Could I do 7.6 and switch with whoever's got that one?
6, sure. If Councillor Alford, are you okay with doing the water rates bylaw 7.5?
You want the zoning, Chris?
Sure. Or you can do the zoning too if you want to do it. I just
No,
I'm gonna vote
I'm
against the
fine.
water
I'm fine
rates.
to do the water rates. I'm fine to do the water rates.
Okay, so 7.5 will be with Councillor Alford and 7.6 will be with Councillor McGuire.
Now you're
And then, oops, sorry.
messing up my notes here, my sticky notes.
Oh,
Chris, do you want to second my 7.5 then?
I have a short report too, if that's okay.
I do too. Chris, do you want to second my water rates motion then?
No, because I don't want to vote for it.
Okay.
oh, just a reminder, you have to vote, but yeah, you just you vote, not support.
Okay, McKenna. Are you okay with the water rates?
And then, yeah, Councillor McGuire has the adjournment. Perfect.
Nikki's doing mine, 7.1.
Who's your seconder, Jay?
Nikki.
Nikki, okay. And 7.2.
McKenna is the seconder.
Okay. Uh, 7.3, I have McKenna and whom?
I'll do that.
Councillor Brennan.
Okay. 7.4, I have Alan and McKenna.
Yeah.
Correct?
That's right.
7.5. That Wendy and Peter?
Yeah.
7.6 is Chris and your seconder, Chris?
The zoning bylaw, Wendy or Jay, do you want that?
I'll do it.
Jay.
Okay. And 8.1 is Peter.
Peter and Wendy.
Okay.
And then just adjourn.
Okay. And Rain has a report.
And I do as well, Sean.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, Mayor Panko, whenever you're ready, I can count us in.
You're gonna put your chain on.
Yeah, my chain's a town hall. I'm not.
That's okay.
We're a little snowed
Put a
in today.
necklace on.
Yeah, I was wondering.
I've got some
Get Tracy
rosary
to get you a
beads.
necklace.
I've got some rosary beads.
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
Should have some here somewhere too. Okay.
Okay,
Let's roll on, Nadine.
all right, so we will go live in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, everyone, to this regular meeting of Smith Falls Town Council from Monday, January 17th. There's no amendments to our agenda. We'll start the meeting with our land agreement. On January 17th, 2022, we acknowledge that the sacred land on which Smith Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We're also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. I have no announcements this evening. I'll ask for disclosure of monetary interest. I don't see any. Okay. We have no delegations. Adoption of minutes is with Councillor Allen, please.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna that the minutes of the December 13th, 2021 and December 20th, 2021 meetings of council meeting be approved as circulated.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that the minutes of the December 13th, 2021 and December 20th, 2021 meetings of council be approved as circulated. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Reports. Councillor Allen, you have the floor. You muzzle.
Yes, I just have a very quick one tonight, but it's an important one, and I do need council's feedback on this. Many of you have participated in the trivia challenge that the Friends of the Library started 23 years ago, I've been told. Doesn't seem to me that it's that long, but it is. This was something that was very important to Tom Vokes, and many of you took part in it over the years, and they're going to do it again this year, but they're going to do it a little differently. We've hired, or we're looking to hire, someone called Top Dog. They're the people who do these kinds of events on Zoom. And so I'm hoping that you will join me and have a council team again, as has been historical in the past. But it's going to be on Sunday, March 6th at 1 o'clock. And the way it works is we would have our own room. Each of the teams have a room so that when we do our conferring or like analyzing the answers, we're in our room, and then we come back out into the public forum to give them our answer and win the game. I mean, win the day. That would be our plan. So just if you could reach out to me by text or phone call, I would appreciate it, because I'd like to be able to tell them this week we're going to have a meeting, the library board, and I'd like to know that we could participate. Thank you very much. That's it.
Sounds like fun.
Or
Thank
you'll
you.
have a team.
Councillor Allen, or sorry, Councillor Alford, you had a report as well?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I have some great news. The DBA applied for a My Main Street grant, which is funded by the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario. In Southern Ontario, we had to ask this during some of the webinars. Southern Ontario means just not Toronto. It's pretty much everybody else. And it was administered by the Canadian Urban Institute. So we are thrilled to say that the Downtown Decor project was one of the successful projects chosen for the Main Street Community Activator Grant. And our chair is saying the funding provides reimbursement for the summer and winter banners in our downtown core, along with the twinkle lights on the street light posts, as well as the winter greenery. So these additions to the beauty of our revitalized Beckwith Street, and it's our intention that when phase 2 is finished, that we will broaden the scope of that down to Elmsley. So we're really, really thrilled. And this comes on the heels of the also successful application for the Accelerator program, which is administered again by EDCO, the Economic Developers Council of Ontario, but again through the federal funding. And I just want to remind everybody that that is a program that provides funding for the staff to administer it. It's very like Digital Main Street, which was an extremely successful program by the DBA. It contributes $50,000 towards the 12-month salary of a Main Street ambassador. It also provides participating Main Street communities to receive up to 10,000 non-repayable dollars to support local businesses. 5 of those would be non-repayable contributions that are available for existing businesses, while 5 non-repayable contributions are available for new businesses. So we are 2 for 2 on My Main Street right now, And there is more work there's more work in process because there is another round coming up February 1st for the Activator grant. And so the DBA will be and is working with some of our partners to get that one ready. So 2 for 2 so far.
Congratulations. Well done. Thank you.
And that is it, Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay. I've got just one report myself. You may recall last Monday when CAO Morris and I had to step away from our meeting. We were a delegation at Miracle Wolford to speak to the recreational cost sharing agreement. We had been to other municipalities in the past, and Miracle Wolford was the last. And so I'm pleased to report that Miracle Wolford Council unanimously endorsed the recreational cost sharing agreement. That means all of our partners are on board, and this will be coming forward to a future committee of the whole meeting. I guess CM Morris may know exactly when it comes to us, but very encouraging news to know all of our municipal partners around the town are fully on board for the next 5 years. That's it for my reports. We'll go into our bylaws, and Councillor Brennan, you're up first.
Thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Dwyer, that a bylaw to authorize a community improvement plan funding agreement with Hammer and Nails Developments Limited be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Dwyer, that a bylaw to authorize a community improvement plan funding agreement with Hammer and Nails Development Limited be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Brennan?
Well, this came up last week at our COW meeting, and this development is at 7 Maple, and that is the building that has been destroyed or demolished now. And we look forward to a beautiful new, I think, 33-unit apartment building with some commercial on the bottom. And they approached the CIP committee, and this is what they call a program 5, and it just splits the cost for the environmental assessment with the developer in recognition of the work they're doing. The value, I think, is around $2,500. So happy to support this.
Great, thank you. Any further comments? Yes, Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to seek clarity on the wording of that. I'm looking at my bylaw. Was it changed from a community grant funding to a community improvement grant? I'm sorry, yeah. I'm working. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, no further questions, Councillor Ryan?
Unless I misworded it when I read it, but
no, you've got the revised agenda.
Yeah.
Third reading, please.
Okay, thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Dwyer, that a bylaw to authorize a community improvement plan funding agreement with Hammer and Nails Developments Limited be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, and sealed, numbered 10296/2022.
Great, thank you. Moved by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Dwyer, that a bylaw to authorize a community improvement plan funding agreement with Hammer and Nails Development Limited be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10296/2022. All in favor? It's carried. Great, thank you. Councillor Alford, you have the next bylaw.
I do. Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meetings on the 6th, 13th, and 20th days of December 2021 be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meetings on the 6th, 13th, and 20th days of December 2021 be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? That's carried. Discussion, please.
This is housekeeping for council.
Thank you. May we have a third reading?
Yes, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meetings on the 6th, 13th, and 20th days of December 2021 be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10297/2022.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meetings on the 6th, 13th, and 20th days of December 2021 be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10297/2022. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And Councillor McKenna, you have, I guess, probably the big one tonight.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Brennan, that a bylaw to adopt estimates of the sums required for municipal purposes for the year 2022 be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, seconded by Councillor Brennan. The bylaw to adopt some estimates of sums required for the municipal purposes for the year 2022 be received for the first time and taken as read a second time. This is the first and second reading of the budget for those who are watching, and the third reading will come forward next Monday. So I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Moving on, 7.4 with Councillor Allen, please.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to impose an interim tax levy for the year 2022 on properties within all tax classes be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to impose an interim tax levy for the year 2022 on properties within all tax classes be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Allen?
Yes, this is a good news story. There's no assessment increase this year, so that's great. Great news for everyone, I think.
Thank you. And this will enable the town to go ahead also and collect taxes based on 50% of last year's taxes, right? For the interim bylaw? Yes. Cia Morris?
That's correct.
That is correct, Your Worship.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. For Councillor Allen, may the third reading, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to impose an interim tax levy for the year 2022 on properties within all tax classes be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10299-2022.
Great, thank you. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to impose an interim tax levy for the year 2022 on properties within all tax classes be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10299-2022. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Councillor Alford, you have item 7.5.
I do. Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to amend bylaw 8712-2014, being a bylaw to establish and regulate the maintenance, operations, and management of the water system, and to establish the rates and other service charges for use of the system, be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Again, so like our budget bylaw, this is only the first and second reading of essentially the water rates bylaw. Thank you. So I'll call the question. I move by Councillor Alford, second by Councillor McKenna. The bylaw to amend bylaw 8712-2014, being a bylaw to establish and regulate the maintenance, operations, and management of the water system, and to establish the rates and other service charges for use of the system, be received read a first time and taken as read a second time. That's read a second time, yes. All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. And our final bylaw is with Councillor McGuire.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Brennan, that a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 6080-94 respecting the lands known municipally as 143 Lombard Street be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Brennan, the bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 6080-94 respecting the lands known municipally as 143 Lombard Street be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Brennan? Councillor McGuire.
So this is an exciting addition to our commercial development on Lombard Street. It's going to be the other half of the street, across the street from the Starbucks and the LCBO complex. Site plan control will be coming to our planning advisory committee, where the details will be ironed out.
Thank you. Any further discussion? May I have a third reading, please?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Brennan, that a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 6080-94 respecting the lands known municipally as 143 Lombard Street be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10301-2022.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that a bylaw to amend zoning bylaws 4, respecting the land zone municipally as 143 Lombard Street, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10301-2021-22. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. That's it for our bylaws. We have one motion, which is with Councillor McKenna.
Yes, Your Worship, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Alford, that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smiths Falls support the development of a 4-story mixed-use building featuring 2 commercial ground floor units and 33 residential units within the upper stories on the property, municipally known as 7 Maple Avenue, in principle, through the tax-based redevelopment grant under Program 4 of the Community Improvement Plan, subject to the following conditions. 1, consideration for an execution of a contribution agreement will occur following the property being reassessed by impact and the town being notified of the same. 2, that any reassessment received will be communicated to council for consideration and direction. And 3, that the contribution agreement will articulate measures to provide enhanced physical accessibility measures, and that the contribution agreement will include affordability provisions for 2 of the 1-bedroom units.
Thank you. And further discussion, please.
Yes, Your Worship. This is at the corner of William and Maple, and the building was recently, the old building there was recently demolished, and council's delighted that a 33 residential unit building is going up. The developers have applied for a community improvement plan grant, and we've agreed in principle to proceed with those following provisions that we've added to that. And we look forward to further discussions on this exciting development.
Super, thank you. I see Councillor McGuire also had a comment.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm disappointed with the wording of this one. I think it's going to create problems down the road. The CIP program was created to improve the design in the downtown. At the time the original CIP came out, there were no sections on affordability, very limited on accessibility. And unfortunately, there's no design components that have been incorporated into the conditions. Now, an approval in principle is only going to be as strong as the principles that have been put into the agreement. And with the wording that we are going to have enhanced accessibility measures and affordability provisions that are only determined after impact comes back, there could be the opportunity for a huge lack of agreement on what those numbers look like. If we look at affordability on units, if we're subsidizing units by $1,000 a month, that's $12,000 a year. Over the 10-year possible maximum term, there's $120,000 possible tax abatement right there. Without getting into any of these details, it doesn't have enough weight and enough substance here to, I think, be meaningful to the developer and to give the town some understanding of what we're agreeing to and what we're going to get out of the package. So because it leaves the design component out, because it hasn't ironed out the details on affordability and accessibility, I'm not able to support what's being proposed at this time.
Thank you. Before we go to Councillor Brannan, Senior Planner Granke is still here, I believe. And perhaps he can speak more to the finer details that would be included in the agreement that may not be mentioned here. Carl, are you available?
Thank you. Yes. Thank you for the comment there. So with respect to the accessibility, what was being looked at was tying this into the 15% accessible or barrier-free units that the building code requires be provided there, and certainly as we know, the building code's barrier-free requirements to support access to and through the site don't meaningfully address accessibility with respect to requiring the installation of grab bars and a number of other other enhancements. So that's the that's what we were looking at and discussing with the applicants, going above and beyond what the code requires for that, which is something that they were preparing to and proposing to do anyway. And this would be the way to enshrine that. With respect to the affordable units, those details have not been ironed out in principle. However, certainly we would be potentially looking at something similar to what we'd provisions similar to what we looked at for affordability provisions at their other project on Beckwith Street. However, those details, of course, will need to get determined out. At this point, this is an approval in principle, so we don't have those details finalized. I'll look to CAO Morris if he'd like to add anything to my response.
Thanks, Carl. CAO Morris.
Yeah, I think Mr. Granke had covered the principles behind both affordability and accessibility.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brennan, do you have a comment as well?
Yeah, I'm going to support this. I think that you know, the proponents have done things, i.e., burying hydro lines and other elements of the design that the PAC looked at and were impressed with. Anything else tying? It's mentioned here with affordability, but to tie design elements into this, I think is not right. And we're not committing to what they requested in terms of tax abatement. We're committing to having a look at the impact assessment and then making a determination from there going forward. And it certainly, you know, may not be 10 years at 100%, or it might be 2 years at a lower percentage. So it would be up to the council, but we're just agreeing in principle here to the way that the CIP is written. And until the CIP is rewritten, they're playing by the rules, and we are playing by the rules. So I'm happy to support it, and I think maybe we should have a recorded vote on it.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments before I call the question via a recorded vote? Okay, so moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Alford. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls support the development of a 4-story mixed-use building featuring 2 commercial ground floor units and 33 residential units within the upper stories on the property municipally known as 7 Maple Avenue, in principle, through the tax-based redevelopment grant under Program 4 of the Community Improvement Plan, subject to the following conditions. 1, consideration for and execution of a contribution agreement will occur following the property being reassessed by MPAC and the town being notified of the same. 2, that any reassessment received will be communicated to council for consideration and direction. 3, the contribution agreement will articulate measures to provide enhanced physical accessibility measures, and that the contribution agreement will include affordability provisions for 2 of the 1-bedroom units. A recorded vote has been requested. Deputy Clerk Bennett.
With respect to miscellaneous motion 8.1, please state yay or nay. Councillor Alford?
Yay.
Councillor Allen?
Yay.
Councillor Brennan?
Yay.
Councillor Dwyer?
Yay.
Councillor McGuire?
Nay.
Councillor McKenna?
Yay.
And Mayor Panko.
Yay.
This motion is carried.
Thank you. That's it for our formal business. Any inquiries or announcements? I see none. I'll go directly to adjournment. Back to you, Councillor McGuire.
Your worship, we'll have to get back into the trivia for 2022, but I don't have any tonight. So moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dwyer that this council adjourn its proceedings at 6:34 p.m. and stands so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, second by Councillor Dwyer. This council adjourns proceedings at 6:34 p.m. and stands so adjourned until next duly called meeting of council. All in favor? Thank you, everyone.